Hello, technology giant Uber has changed how people all over the world hail a taxi. And just like Google, it's got its own verb, to Uberize. That means to change the market for a service by introducing a different way of using it. You might say Airbnb Uberized the property rental market, for example. Uber's popularity has made it an indispensable car ride service in cities all over the world. The $68 billion company is planning an IPO next year, and now the challenge will be to disrupt its own business model to adapt for survival. But in 2017, a series of scandals over its business practices and its treatment of workers has kept Uber in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And it's being stripped of its license to operate in London now, one of the biggest markets for cabs in the world. Nadeem Barber looks at how that decision is going down.
For the last year, Gulab Singh's been driving for Uber. He works 6 days a week and says he makes enough money to support his family. He enjoys being able to choose when he works. He's one of 40,000 Uber drivers in the British capital, but now the regulators Transport for London, who run the city's buses and underground trains, say they won't extend Uber's licence beyond the end of the month. For many people who've got used to the service, it's a shock.
It's so easy for us to go from one place to another safely and quickly. So no, it's a shame, it's a shame.
When Uber came out, I was like, oh, all right, okay. It's obviously not as cheap as getting the train, but I still feel like I don't feel like I'm paying ridiculous amounts.
TfL say Uber's shown a lack of corporate responsibility in areas such as the reporting of serious criminal offences. It follows allegations that Uber drivers suspected of sexual assaults were allowed to keep driving.
TfL have spent some time going through the regulations that Parliament's given them in relation to deciding whether a private hire vehicle operator is fit and proper. They've looked at the evidence, and TfL have concluded today that Uber aren't a fit and proper private vehicle operator. The real concerns around safety and security.
Uber has come out fighting, suggesting TfL's decision is motivated not by safety concerns but by politics, and promising to fight the move in the courts.
By trying to ban Uber in London, they're caving into the pressure exerted by a small minority that want to restrict consumer choice and competition. This decision, if it holds true, will mean that over 40,000 licensed drivers will be out of work.
Traditionally, after a night out in London's West End at a theatre, say, or at a restaurant, people would hail a black taxicab. But 5 years ago, Uber arrived and caused a sensation. With just a few clicks on your mobile phone, you can get to where you're going to at a cheaper price. But of course, it's caused controversy as well. Last year, Uber driver James Farrar took the firm to court, arguing drivers should be treated as employees with rights to the minimum wage and sick pay.
What TfL, the Mayor and Uber should do is they should evolve the regulations for the 21st century. They should enforce and develop regulations effectively, and they should protect worker rights of drivers.
Uber can carry on operating in London at least until appeals have been exhausted. But this is one more setback for a firm that's been hit by legal challenges and protests around the world, and also made life easier for millions of people.
Well, joining me now from London is Karl Benedikt Frey. Karl is the co-director of the Oxford Martin Programme on Technology and Employment. Thanks very much for being with us. Now, we're talking about a huge market in London, aren't we? How damaging is this for Uber globally?
Well, London constitutes roughly 5% of Uber's driver space, and the UK is its second largest market in Europe. So indeed, this would be quite a significant blow to Uber.
And while Uber's been great for consumers, it's often seen as being bad for the labour market in form of less job security, lower pay and all the rest of it. But you did a study on the impact of sharing economy platforms like Uber on jobs, and what were some of the findings?
Well, what we found is that actually after the introduction of Uber, employment in taxi services expands quite significantly. So overall, Uber creates jobs rather than destroys them. It expands the labour market for taxi services. But what happens then, obviously, as labour supply expands, is that there's more competition, and that tends to drive down wages, for incumbent drivers, which is a side effect of that success, if you like. But in addition to that, there's also survey evidence that suggests that Uber drivers are actually very happy with their lives. They value the flexibility that the platform offers them. They are quite content with the financial compensation. So on balance, I think that most of the evidence actually suggests that Uber drivers fare reasonably well.
Now, a lot of people are saying that this could be a game changer for the gig economy, that other governments may feel emboldened now to more heavily regulate companies like Uber. Do you think that could happen?
Well, it's possible. I mean, we will see what kind of a deal that is made, if a deal is made. I think this is quite actually a high-risk game, because the consequences of Uber actually being bad would be very bad for London consumers. A lot of people have actually structured their lives surrounding the availability of Uber. Quite a few people actually even use it to commute to work. It might constitute a risk to real estate prices in some areas of London that doesn't have good access to public services. So I think that the TfL is actually playing a high-risk game in this regard, and this may equally constitute a blow to the City of London as it does to Uber. So we will see what happens. I think what the outcome of this process will very much determine how other countries, cities and regions proceed with this.
The Uber CEO has said, obviously, that they're going to fight this decision, and they say that it's based largely on what they say is Uber's bad reputation preceding it. Do you think that's fair criticism?
I think what the sharing economy does is that it constitutes a trade-off between flexibility and security. And the labour market functions best when you have both. So what legislators should do is to make sure that this gig economy, this sharing economy, can exist side by side with normal, with the traditional labour market, and that requires legislations to make sure that both function well in parallel.
Karl Benedikt Frey, thanks very much for being with us. That is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Hazem Seeker from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.